Proverbs 23. I kind of saw four divisions in this chapter, and they're up on the screen right now. And I know that other commentators have divided this chapter up differently, and some of those might make more sense than mine, actually, especially the last part of the chapter that's talking about gluttony and drunkenness. But this is what made sense to me. And as we talk, it may continue to make sense, or we may discover something else. So reading the chapter. When you sit down to eat with a ruler, observe carefully what is before you and put a knife to your throat if you are given to appetite. Do not desire his delicacies, for they are deceptive food. Do not toil to acquire wealth, but be discerning enough to desist. When your eyes light on it, it is gone, for suddenly it sprouts wings, flying like an eagle toward heaven. Do not eat the bread of a man who is stingy. Do not desire his delicacies. For he is like one who is inwardly calculating. Eat and drink, he says to you, but his heart is not with you. You will vomit up the morsels that you have eaten and waste your pleasant words. Do not speak in the hearing of a fool, for he will despise the good sense of your words. Do not move an ancient landmark or enter the fields of the fatherless, for their Redeemer is strong, and he will plead their cause against you. Apply your heart to instruction and your ear to words of knowledge. Do not withhold discipline from a child. If you strike him with a rod, he will not die. If you strike him with the rod, you will save his soul from Sheol. My son, if your heart is wise, my heart too will be glad. My inmost being will exult when your lips speak what is right. Let not your heart envy sinners, but continue in the fear of the Lord all day. Surely there is a future, and your hope will not be cut off. Hear, my son, and be wise, and direct your heart in the way. Be not among drunkards or among gluttonous eaters of meat. For the drunkard and the glutton will come to poverty, and slumber will clothe them with rags. Listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Buy truth and do not sell it. Buy wisdom, instruction, and understanding. The father of the righteous will greatly rejoice. He who fathers a wise son will be glad in him. Let your father and mother be glad. Let her who bore you rejoice. My son, give me your heart, and let your eyes observe my ways. For a prostitute is a deep pit, and adulteress is a narrow well. She lies in wait like a robber and increases the traitors among mankind. Who has woe? Who has sorrow? Who has strife? Who has complaining? Who has wounds without cause? Who has redness of eyes? Those who tarry long over wine, those who go to try mixed wine. Do not look at wine when it is red, when it sparkles in the cup and goes down smoothly. In the end, it bites like a serpent and stings like an adder. Your eyes will see strange things, and your heart will utter perverse things. You will be like one who lies down in the midst of the sea, like one who lies on the top of a mast. They struck me, you will say, but I was not hurt. They beat me, but I did not feel it. When shall I awake? I must have another drink. And part of that last reminds me of like an old cartoon, like a Mickey Mouse cartoon or something from the 40s.
Reminds me of an Irish drinking song. I must have another drink.
All right, so starting at the beginning with the self-control around other people, the first three verses are talking about eating with a wealthy or powerful person. It says ruler, but I wonder what the Hebrew word there is. Ruler is mishal.
I find that to be very interesting because in many different areas of scripture, it equates rulers as being sanctioned by God. And as such, it seems odd that if you have somebody sanctioned by God, that you're warned to be careful when you're around them. Mm-hmm. It's a juxtaposition, you know?
Yeah, I read kind of two different interpretations of this. I mean, they're definitely related, but one was more from the perspective that this is a possibly or probably a wicked ruler. So when you're in their presence, don't put yourself in his debt. Don't accept too many gifts. Don't make a fool of yourself, because it could really come back to hurt you. And let's see, they're going to be watching you. judging your behavior. And this is true of both the wicked and the righteous ruler, that they're going to be watching how you behave around things that you don't normally have, luxuries. Like, is this person greedy? Does he have self-control? And if you behave yourself well in the presence of a ruler, whether wicked or righteous, that's going to raise your character in their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the chance that if you misbehave, it could really do you serious damage. But if you behave yourself really well, it could have a huge reward.
Yeah, so you only get one chance to make a good first impression, that type of thing.
Yeah, and this is somebody who has life and death power over you, potentially.
Mm-hmm.
So you definitely want to make a good impression. And you don't want to be like, the next part where it talks about a stingy man. Where is that? Do not eat the bread of a man who is stingy, in verse 6. Do not desire his delicacies. This is a very similar idea, that if you accept gifts from somebody who is stingy, he's going to expect something back. He doesn't give anything for free. And the more powerful he is, the more potentially he could be expecting back.
Yeah.
One thing to illustrate this is in movies, when you've got a mobster or, the mafioso, and you ask him for a favor. Well, he may give you the favor, but, he's going to need a favor back someday. And you can almost guarantee that it's going to be a much bigger favor than what you asked him.
Right.
At least relative to your circumstances.
Yep. It highlights the difference between our current society and, I won't say ancient, but previous societies where kingships were more dominant or more the norm. Because the way we look at things in the US is, we are a republic or democracy, some people will say, which we're not. But regardless, they try to establish an equality, or you work for me. If you look at a police officer or somebody in Congress, you work for me. It's a nice thought, but it's not how things play out. And I think, although we have a nice facade of what our culture is supposed to be, or an ideal, I think it is just that, a facade. I don't think there is a reality that people that have acquired power are my equal. At least in their eyes, they will yield that power to their benefit. This is sort of outlining a reality, And is our society currently reflective of that reality? Whether or not you agree with Donald Trump, you look at the leverage that is being applied to possibly manipulate the legal system to force compliance. And you can take it outside of Donald Trump. You can look at a number of people, a number of scenarios where that's happened. You can see how the people in power know how to massage it and use it and benefit from it. This basically, be careful when you're around a ruler, it's a truth even to this day. You may not recognize that person as a ruler, but it puts it on you to have some discernment in that area as well.
Yeah, you got to walk carefully around people who have influence and power. Let's see. I lost my notes here. In verse 4 and 5 here, do not toil to acquire wealth. Be discerning enough to desist. When your eyes light on it, it is gone, for suddenly it sprouts wings, flying like an eagle toward heaven. This passage, verses 1 through 8, are almost a chiasm, because this first part is talking about accepting gifts or dining at the expense of a ruler. The last part is talking about dining at the expense of a miser. And in the middle, you've got warnings against focusing on wealth. Like, don't become these people. And, of course, the warning is not against wealth itself. Do not toil to acquire wealth. Well, there's a lot of proverbs that talk about toiling to acquire wealth. So that's not really the point. The point is more, don't make that the focus or the reason that you work just to acquire wealth, because then you're going to end up the guy that everybody has to watch out for and be careful around. I wonder what the word for toil there is. Labor. So to be exhausted, to toil, grow weary. So yeah, it's not just talking about, working to acquire things. It's talking about wearing yourself out. Like, this is all you do. And it's not just an unbalanced life, but it has the potential to warp you into either the miser who looks at every relationship like a transaction.
Yeah, what
or
cost?
the ruler, or the ruler who's always, evaluating the people around him rather than trying to be their friend, or trying to find a friend in them.
Right. It's interesting. The beginning talks about appetite, and then in verse 8 it talks about vomiting. So, it's the opposite, but it's sort of like, if you have a desire for this and that desire is unrighteous, if you have an appetite for unrighteousness, you will basically be vomiting out that what you take in, because it's unrighteous, like poison. You better vomit it out or it's going to affect you.
Yeah, I thought it was also interesting how that flowed right into verse 9. I mean, it's talking about the miser and, accepting his gifts. But then at the end, you will vomit up the morsels that you've eaten and waste your pleasant words. So you're trying to be, engaging company, create some conversation and reward him for inviting you there by being pleasant company. But that's not the way that he looks at things. He's looking for what he can get out of you, not how you can entertain him. And so, it's talking about, you're going to be wasting your words. But then it immediately says, don't speak in the hearing of a fool, for he will despise the good sense of your words. The implication there is that the miser who has wasted himself on labor is a fool for doing that, when there are so many more valuable things that he could have been putting his time and energy into. At least that's what I get out of it.
How would you characterize a fool?
A fool, we've spent so much time reading and talking about fools.
Right.
And now trying to condense it into a single thought.
It's a good question.
A fool in general is someone who lets his urges run his life.
Okay.
So in the case of the miser, it's either his fear that he's not going to have enough when he gets old, or his desire to one up somebody, or, just the desire to have and have. I mean, there's got to be something behind that desire. People don't want stuff just to want stuff. They want stuff for the status it gives them, or for the security that it gives them, things like that. And then in the same chapter, we also have, people who give in to alcohol or lust, or, all these physical urges that give us momentary pleasures instead of long-lasting joy or contentment.
Yeah, it's sort of like an improper self-absorption. There's got to be a proper self-absorption, because we're all self-aware and we are going to try to self-preserve. But when you lose that sense of what's the scripture Yeshua said, the most important, love your neighbor as yourself. What is that?
Yeah.
Right.
Love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind,
Right.
and soul.
And then
love your neighbor as yourself.
I think that's the ideal. A fool would be the opposite of that. I mean, that's wisdom, whereas a fool is going to be what we're getting into at the end, about the gluttony, the alcohol. It sort of plays out later in this chapter of what that looks like. It may not be calling them a fool outright, but I don't think anybody would lift up that type of action as desirable, you know, as a honorable thing.
Yeah. All right. So the next verses, 10 and 11. Do not move an ancient landmark or enter the fields of the fatherless, for their Redeemer is strong. He will plead their cause against you. You know, when I was dividing this chapter up, I kind of put that by itself. You know, Yahweh advocates for the weak, or advocates for the weak. But now that I'm reading it after talking about the rich man and an unbalanced drive for wealth, and then the miser, thinking this is just really an extension of the miser. Don't move an ancient landmark or enter the fields of the fatherless. Why does somebody do that? Because he's greedy for what somebody else has. He's trying to take, somebody who may not be taking full advantage of the resources that God gave them. You may be tempted to move into their place. And you might feel justified in doing that. I mean, I could see myself thinking that way, that, this guy's got all this land. He's not using it. He's just letting it go to waste. Does it really hurt anything if I just start using this and don't tell him? And then maybe move the fence over a little bit when he's not looking? Well, it hurts me. Even if I don't see it right away, it might
a friend
increase my bottom line. But
go ahead, sorry.
Well, it might increase my bottom line, but it's going to cost me in other ways.
I have a friend that his mother had a house in New Hampshire, and she had like 300 acres. She had a lot of land with it. And my friend was very focused on his acts of righteousness.
Mm-hmm.
And he had a family that was in need, and his mother had passed, and he said, no, I have this house. I'm going to sell you this house because it will benefit me and it will benefit you. So he sold them the house at a very reduced price.
Mm-hmm.
And I got talking with him. I said, what about the land? Because he sold it all. He never gave thought to the value of the land. It was just the house. So he undercut himself significantly. And the people that he sold it to benefited tremendously. And my friend is a person, even to this day, that's in still much need, financially. I'm listening to this verse about don't move the landmark, and it's almost, have you heard the win-win scenario or win-lose scenario when you're dealing with a relationship or an interaction?
Yeah.
His was a win-lose, and he didn't realize it. I think if the other people had been a little more, maybe they were clueless as well, but I think if there had been a little bit of wisdom involved, it would have been realized we need to come to a reasonable resolution to this, or a reasonable transaction, as opposed to, oh my God, I'm getting such a good deal. I mean, we all do that, right? I think God really wants it to be a win-win situation in most scenarios. I'm not really verbalizing exactly what I'm trying to say, but somehow it applies to this. I think if you have that win-lose mentality, then you are really self-absorbed,
Yeah, I think that's right. And it really is just like this scenario, because that man he was unsuspecting. He didn't know what he was giving up. And those, the buyer took advantage of that. I'm sure that they knew what was going on.
Yeah.
But it says that
It's okay. Here's an example, Jay.
Okay.
How many times have you gone to like the bank, or maybe you're doing a transaction at a restaurant or at a grocery store, where you have been undercharged, or the bank gives you money inadvertently, wasn't yours? They're going to find it eventually, but the righteous thing is to acknowledge, hey, you messed up. This is not what the price is. Sometimes it's like, oh wow, I gave you, I did everything I was supposed to and you messed up and I win. And it's the big corporation, It speaks a lot to your character, because sometimes it's, who's going to know, but God knows. And the right thing to do is to acknowledge, I'm sorry, you didn't charge the right price on this,
Yeah, they're not exactly the fatherless or the widow, but it's still stealing. This is still
Yep.
somebody else's property.
Yep.
So what do you think it means in verse 11 when it says, "For the Redeemer is strong, and he will plead their cause against you"?
It ties into the don't move the landmarks or enter a field of the
Mm-hmm.
father. God is the one that's going to intercede on their behalf. That's how
How
I
do you
see
think
it.
he does that? Just trying to put you on the spot.
You did. Good job. You just did a win-lose thing. I don't like you.
Let
Oh,
me
good
drag this
Lord.
landmark back.
Well, we've talked about this before. I think
Mm-hmm.
the Proverbs are presenting an ideal. I would like to think that righteousness will prevail. Does it? Doesn't seem to all the time. But you still have to have that standard.
Yeah, I'm thinking about back here in verse 5, talking about, wearing yourself out to acquire wealth.
Yeah.
Be discerning enough to desist is, of course, talking about, know when to quit, know when to focus on other things that matter. So this miser or the greedy person who is now taking advantage of his weaker neighbors, moving boundary stones because they can't afford to hire a lawyer to fight him, or, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um, this is someone who is unbalanced in his acquisition of wealth. And verse 5 says that, when your eyes light on your wealth, as soon as you see it, it's gone. For suddenly it sprouts wings, flying like an eagle toward heaven. But we know that many people who acquire wealth through, what's the word I'm looking for? Unethical means, they just keep getting wealthier and wealthier. And there are times, of course, like people who aren't very smart. If you're just a criminal and you're trying to take advantage of people, most criminals are stupid. They get caught and they're going to lose whatever it is they gain. But it's the super wealthy people, really smart ones, who get away with it. But I think that same conclusion we've come to before in previous chapters, that there are different kinds of wealth and different kinds of rewards. If you focus on the acquisition of wealth to the detriment of relationships and community in your relationship with God, well, you've gained, your balance on this column is really high, but your balance in all these others are suffering. And so it's not that your net worth has gained at all. Your net worth might have even gone down, because what's the point of having money? You get physical security and you get comforts for today, but the relationships, the people that you would enjoy it with, and the extended community, those things are frequently missing. I can't imagine that somebody like Bill Gates or Elon Musk have a lot of meaningful relationships. They have a lot of relationships, but they're all based on money. They're all transactional, or they're all based on Elon Musk is a crazy one, because they're all based on how many kids he can have with how many women, I guess. I don't really know.
I didn't know that about him. Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really weird situation. I think he has like 11 or 12 kids.
Oh, okay.
And I really doubt that he has a relationship with more than 2 or 3 of them at most.
That's sad.
But this is the kind of wealth that a lot of those people will never experience. They are relationship poor if they're gold rich. And it's because they focused on the wrong thing. So one way or another, those scales are going to balance out. And that may be one way in which the Redeemer pleads their cause against you. you've gained wealth and you've got lots of comfortable stuff, but it's possible that you're miserable too. I mean, I don't know those people, so I mean, I can't really say what their life is like. I'm just speculating.
It's interesting though. I would think a stronger application would be there'll be justice. That's not what it says. It says
Hmm.
he will plead your cause. Okay. Does that mean there's justice? No, it just says he'll plead your cause.
Hmm.
Uh, it's sort of open ended. It's an odd verse.
Yeah, well, even then, I mean, there's no guarantee that the fatherless or the widows are righteous people.
No,
They may have their own, screwed up balance sheet.
right?
That brings up an interesting thing in this verse. He will plead their cause against you. Well, to whom does he plead their cause?
Well,
If the Redeemer is God,
I presume it's Yeshua pleading on and pleading to God.
mhm. Yeah,
You
I
know that,
think so too. It's Yeshua in his role as the kinsman redeemer, or
right?
uh, yeah, in that role, he is pleading to the Father. And just like Satan is an accuser, Yeshua is our advocate.
Mhm.
We've got a lawyer on both sides, one against us and one for us. At least, hopefully that's the way it works out. If we're
Yeah, it's sort of like
on the wrong side.
in old time radio shows or even TV shows that you see now. You might have somebody that is has broken the law. He was a participant in some sort of act, whether it's egregious or not.
Hmm.
And he is approached by the police and they've caught him and or they're at least giving him the chance to come clean. And they often say, will you advocate for me to the court? And the response is often, we can't say what will happen.
Hmm.
I think if you show cooperation, it will likely go better for you. But they don't commit to it.
Right.
And it's sort of the same here. It's will Yeshua will advocate on your behalf, and you have to let it play out. It's an interesting idea.
Yep. And it says the Redeemer is strong, not will be strong. So
Mm-hmm.
this is another place that shows the pre-existence of Yeshua, his eternal nature. We talked about disciplining children before. I don't know if there's anything really that we need to add to that. Is there something you wanted to say,
Let's see.
starting in 13?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you discipline because you love and you want them not to needlessly suffer, but
Hmm.
they need to respond. And
Yeah, I
then
know
your
in
the goal is to be a wise, for your children to be wise. And then and later it talks about honoring your mother and father, but that's sort of the ultimate goal for what you're trying to establish here.
mhm.
And that's proper relation, parent unto child, and then hopefully the parent has the wisdom to appropriately apply judgment.
Yeah, appropriately. Yeah, the King James translates that the word for to strike as beat. And I don't know exactly what that word meant in 1611, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it kind of has the wrong connotation now. The word can mean beat. Apparently, it can mean to smite or kill somebody too. But the literal meaning is to just hit somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not talking about a severe beating or anything like that. There may be times when that's necessary. I don't know. There are kids out there who are not something that I can understand. So who knows if there's some child out there who really needs to be beaten. I kind of doubt it. I tend to think that that's going to be counterproductive, but I think there are very, very few who don't need to be striked, whatever the right term is, at least once in their childhood. Some of them, that's all it takes.
I've seen scenarios.
Hmm.
I've incurred this in frustration at times when I was raising my kids. And it probably has to do with my inconsistency, but I've seen where discipline has not, it was thumbed, the nose was thumbed at it, the
Hmm.
discipline too, and that probably because of my past interaction or lack thereof. But I mean, I have seen some internet stories whereby you have some children that are suffering from schizophrenia or
Hmm.
some sort of malady like that, and there's no way to reach them because of the mental emotional issues that they're struggling with. So I would like to say this is universal, but I'm not sure if
Right.
it's always going to
Yeah,
apply.
I don't think there's a one size fits all when it comes to disciplining children. Yeah, there's a key phrase I think in the previous chapter that talked about this, where it talks about bring up a child in the way that he should go. And one of the
Hmm.
interpretations of in the way that he should go is in the way that is appropriate for this child, or discipline him
Okay.
in the manner that is appropriate for this child, so that each child needs to be
Right.
disciplined
Right.
differently.
Yeah. Yeah.
But only having raised one myself, I
Hmm.
don't have a lot of real world experience there. Watch other people's kids, but
Yeah. I'd like to say I'm wiser now and could do it better. I'm certainly
mhm,
older, don't have the stamina for it.
yeah.
It's just the truth. Uh, Honestly, I would probably fall into the same habits as I did before and would want to be purposeful, but I don't know if I could do it. You
Hmm.
know, even though I have this quote unquote wisdom, it's daunting.
Yeah.
I got to pray for my daughter and my sons and their, my grandkids, because they're doing a good job, but it's a very exacting. It takes a toll, and it's
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah. I think grandparents have the wisdom. They know what needs to be done, but the
right.
doing is better left to the younger generation.
For
And
sure.
while the grandparents can spoil and then send them back home.
Yeah, that's true. That is
Uh,
true.
there's something in verses 15 and 16, a couple of things really that I wanted to point out. I actually made a slide for this one.
Oh,
Verses 15 and 16. And this is the English Standard Version, but you'll notice that I changed one of the words. My son, if your heart be wise, my heart too will be glad. My kidneys will rejoice when your lips speak what is right. So
kidneys, huh?
kidneys, yeah, that is the literal word. Let me put the Bible back over here.
So my
And
innermost being is kidneys.
mhm,
So
yeah,
there's
and the
a
King James
reference,
translates it as reins, which I thought was odd.
but there's a reference. I know we've gone over this before about kidneys.
Hmm.
What you're going to go someplace? I know you are.
Yeah, in all ancient peoples had some what we would consider strange ideas about what
Hmm.
different organs did. This heart is also in this one. In verse 15, it says, if your heart be wise, my heart too will be glad. But it's not really your heart that's glad or your heart that's
Your
wise.
soul,
It's your soul, your mind, your emotions. All of this stuff wisdom incorporates everything, and
right?
not just your thought processes, but the stuff that's a lot more intangible than that. So,
Right.
we use the same phraseology today. We talk about heart when we mean our inmost being. But
Yeah.
the ancients, when they talked about heart, it was really more conscious sort of stuff. But our inmost being, what we call our gut feeling,
Hmm.
we call it that because we've inherited that sort of idea from these ancient peoples, where the seat of your emotions was in your gut, or the seat of your strength was in your gut. And here they're literally saying, my kidneys will rejoice. I mean, inmost being is a great translation. It's just not literal. And one of the things that I wanted to point out about this is that I don't know whether they knew that kidneys don't actually rejoice. And I don't know, maybe at some level they actually do rejoice or respond in some way to good news. But we know that in general, it is our mind and our nervous system overall, the endocrine system, that's creating feelings of joy and energy and making us want to jump up and down, and not our kidneys. But it's not the specific words that are so important as the meaning that they intended to convey. So if he says, my heart will be glad, it's not talking about the organ in your chest. It's talking about, my soul. I mean, I will be glad. When it's talking about the kidneys, it's not talking about these organs that filter out urine and blood or whatever kidneys do. I don't know. But that's not the point. The point is that whatever is in me that responds with joy, that's what's going to respond. And there are other topics that I don't necessarily want to get into that people will latch on to a hyper literal translation or a hyper literal interpretation of a scripture and say, the Bible says this, so the Bible says kidneys will rejoice. So we know that when you're happy, it's because your kidneys are responding to whatever is happening around you, not because, whatever. It's just I think that approach is ignorant of the way that languages work. And languages are so full of idioms that they're almost incomprehensible. If like to an alien who would come here they would know the literal meaning of all the words, they would be clueless about what we're saying, even if they knew the meaning of all the words, because everything we say is so full of idioms.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead. You were trying to say something.
Having suffered, and this, multiple years, hospitalized last year because of kidney stones, I know that if I take the opposite of this, my kid not rejoicing, to me, the kidney not rejoicing, from my personal experience, is hellacious, extreme pain, extreme suffering. And if I did not have a doctor, probably death, at least in my circumstance, because of what I encountered. So, I'm just taking the opposite approach of this. If your kidneys are not rejoicing, physically, extreme discomfort and pain. So rejoicing, and not saying, hey, yay, everything's good. Kidneys rejoicing is sort of a lack of malady, and where malady could be debilitating. So that idea.
Yeah, that's I hadn't even thought of that perspective.
I've lived it.
Yeah. So there is a way in which kidneys can be happy or unhappy, at least in a metaphorical sense. I mean, your kidneys aren't the one that's unhappy. They're just sending signals to your brain to tell you that you ought to be unhappy.
Yeah.
And then the rest of you complies.
Right.
One thing that I thought,
my son, if your heart is wise, my heart will be glad. And my kidneys will rejoice could be, and you will be in health. Your lips will speak what is right. I mean, that's a way of thinking of it.
Yeah, that's possible. I think really it's talking about how, when you witness your children become not just functioning adults, but wise and really successful adults.
Yeah.
There's a joy and a contentment there that probably can't be matched in anything. That the pride of being a proud parent, not pride like, look at me, I'm great, but I am so proud of you kind of thing. Yeah. I think that's really what's going on here. But yeah, there are definitely side effects of that. Better health is one side effect of being happier with your life.
Yeah, but I mean, if the overall statement is about health, then you can apply that to the health of your relationship with them, the health of their relationship to you and to the world. I mean, we're going to get into a little bit later, you know, the relationship between parent and children. That's a beautiful thing. That is, it's edifying, and it is, oh, I've been successful in passing on a lineage of honor. You feel that you have perpetuated something good, which, whether you appropriate that or not, if you feel that you've perpetuated something that ain't so good,
Yeah.
that gets into your soul. That affects you. That, whether you believe it or whether you acknowledge it or not, it weighs upon you because you're worried about them. You're worried about your grandkids. You know.
Yeah.
You when you have a child that has established for themselves their own standard, as opposed to a standard that has been traditional, like the Bible, the Word, it's tried and true, right? The you're in uncharted territory. You don't know. You have no assurance that their approach is going to be sound and healthy, and that's your concern. Is there's a way that is right and established, and then there's a way that's not that.
Yeah.
And when it's not that, you don't have any guideposts that are going to tell you, you're going to come back into health. You know, it's a very cryptic way of trying to say something that I really don't want to get into too much detail on, but I think that's, you know, when we're looking at these verses and the verses forthcoming, I think that's where it's pointing to.
Yeah, there's that other proverb, hope deferred makes the heart sick. That if you're always looking for something that never happens or that becomes increasingly less likely, it really can have a serious impact on your health.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's move on into sinners, drunkards, gluttonous eaters of meat. Is it really talking about meat there? It might be, because meat was generally a more expensive thing. Yeah. Yeah, really talking about meat. A lot of times when scripture says meat, at least with King James and some older translations, it really just means food. But in this case, it really does mean meat. So it's talking about rich foods. And I think this is really the essence of the fool, is that he's indulging in whatever makes him happy right now, instead of what will bring him security and happiness down the road. And rather than dealing with problems, you can just have a drink, forget about your problems, don't solve them.
Yeah, the modern day proverb of the ant and the grasshopper. That's just so true, and it's so throughout the Proverbs in many different areas. This would be one of them. You know, you're so full of the now and the and what's before you. You know, the temporary, that you don't plan for the eternal or for the hard times forthcoming. Now, that's not stingy like it was earlier. We're talking about planning. We're talking about, you know, the ability to weather storms, right? So, yeah, does the stingy man ever celebrate?
Yeah,
You know,
I'm sure he does at times. And, you know, on the whole, he's probably better off than the drunkard. You know, at least he does have security. He
Mm-hmm.
probably has family of some kind, and he has access to doctors or, comforts of life if he
Mm-hmm.
wants them. Whereas the drunkard, he is, like says in verse 21, the drunkard and the glutton will come to poverty, and slumber will clothe them with rags. So you're destroying your relationships. You are alienating yourself from your community. You are spending all of the stuff, all of the funds that you could be using to make your life more secure and more comfortable. And you're destroying your ability to get more funds. So it's like every column is coming down.
Mm-hmm.
There's no compensation for that other than just, having fun for a day and forgetting your troubles until tomorrow.
Which is interesting because there is scripture that talks about drinking to forget.
Yeah,
You know
that's
what
in
I'm
the
referencing?
Proverbs. I can't remember if we've already been there or not,
But
but there is a proverb.
it's almost like, hey, these guys they're not redeemable. Let them get drunk and forget. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's sort of what it says, right?
Yeah. Let, let the one who's miserable drink.
Yeah.
And, it's true to an extent. I'm of the opinion that there's, the Bible never condemns drinking alcohol. It condemns drunkenness,
Mm-hmm.
but there's no command against it. So it's not necessarily a sin to be a drunk. It's unwise. It's foolish. And it will cause you to do things that are sin. For example, neglecting your family, not providing for your wife and your teaching your children. It leads to sin, but it's not sin in itself. And I think
Right.
even there's nothing necessarily wrong with even getting drunk on rare occasions in an appropriate context. Now, of course, that's the question of when is an appropriate context for that. And there is at least one time in Torah, in God's law, where it encourages people to drink to the point of drunkenness. And
Mm-hmm.
that's at Sukkot, when it
Mm-hmm.
says, this is the Feast of Ingathering. Everybody goes to Jerusalem, and if you can't carry all of your produce there to tithe the first fruits of your fall harvest, you sell it here and you buy whatever your heart desires in Jerusalem, including strong drink, and celebrate before the Lord. So there are occasions where drinking, even to what would normally be considered excess, is acceptable, as long as it doesn't become a habitual thing, as long as it's not keeping you from meeting your obligations and,
Mm-hmm.
being a husband and a father and a community elder. And if you're getting drunk on a regular basis, I can guarantee you that those things are suffering.
Yeah.
But how do you define regular basis? Not up to me. I think that is solely determined by another person's life and their circumstances. If a man is a widower, has no children, has nothing, I'm sure that there's something that God has for him to do, but I'm not going to fault him for getting drunk more often.
Well, that means old people can drink like a sieve, right? That's okay. You're old. a nuance on this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. My first take was talking about me,
Mm-hmm.
talking about my drinking. It's not what it says. It says, be not among drunkards. I
Mm-hmm.
think you can infer if you're among drunkards or gluttons, you're partaking.
Yeah,
But
or
it
they're at
says,
least influencing you.
be not among. So why be not among? Because if I'm hanging out with these people, if I am giving credence to these people, and I'm assuming be among them is saying I'm doing it on a very regular basis, then you've got to realize you're not acquiring wisdom
Mm-hmm.
from a good source because they're drunk,
Yeah.
because they're
Well,
gluttons, because
there's an aspect of this chapter that I hadn't noticed before. The end of the chapter is talking about or at least this section we're in right now is talking about being in the company of drunks and gluttons. The beginning of the
Yep.
chapter is talking about being in the company of powerful and wealthy people.
Right.
And those people might become drunkards, but I guarantee you they were not drunkards when they became wealthy and powerful. They became that way because of self-discipline. And their self-discipline might have been unbalanced, but they still reaped a reward because of it. And this very first part where it says, when you sit down to eat with a ruler, observe carefully what is before you.
Mhm.
It doesn't necessarily say what food is set down before you. I mean,
No.
that is the implication, and it's clearly that's part of what is meant, but it's also could be talking about the ruler himself and the people who are around him.
Right.
So if you're going to be in the company of powerful people, observe them and observe the way that their company behaves. And if these are righteous people,
Right.
if they're good people, then you should start to emulate them. You should pattern your life after theirs. If they're not, be careful. Don't be like them, but learn from them what you can. On the drunkards and gluttons, on the other hand,
Right.
there's very little to learn from them. They have wasted everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
What else we got here? About 10 after 8 right now. Oh, after that, it goes into the strange woman, or as the ESV puts it, the prostitute.
Right.
Pretty sure King James says, King James says, for a whore is a deep ditch. So that's interesting. But what is the literal meaning? The literal meaning is a harlot or a prostitute. So that's pretty clear.
Right.
I could have sworn somewhere in here it said the strange woman. I guess not.
I was actually on verse 23 myself.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, buy truth and do not sell it. By wisdom, instruction, and understanding.
I will reference a discussion that was had on one of our boards yesterday, and many people were pondering a Jonathan Cahn video. I listened to the video, and to me the video was, yeah, you made a good statement, a proper statement about, wow, this shooting was demonically inspired. I mean, you could have just said it like that, but it was wrapped in the mystery of this and the mystery of, and I just and numerology and whatnot. And I have a problem with that. But put that aside, is that not peddling, quote unquote, a truth? You packaging it in a mystery of form and then selling it so that you become the sage that people look to for, oh, what other mysteries do you have that you want me to be aware of? Or, this veiled wisdom that you are claiming.
Yeah, clickbait theology.
Yeah, exactly. And when I read that, that's what came to mind. It wasn't necessarily Jonathan Cahn. That was just what I brought up for this. I mean, there have been a number of people that I've seen peddling books on the pulpit because they've got this truth that they've figured out, and they now want you to buy it. So it's unfortunate, but it seems to be a trend.
Yeah, I was kind of turned off by that too. And I have the same problem with Jonathan Cahn's books and teaching. Is there's such an emphasis on mysterious, secret stuff, and I know that he's using it as a marketing tool to get more people interested in what he has to say to them, and he has some good stuff to say, but the method it definitely rubs me the wrong way. But
in light of the scripture, is that not what it's doing? It's selling truth or a truth.
Well, I don't think that's really what this proverb is talking about. I think it's saying don't exchange it for something else. So like you get truth for yourself and don't give it up for something that's not true. Instead
Okay.
of like selling the truth to other people in exchange for gold or silver, it's like,
Mhm.
don't exchange what you know for something that's a lie. Like, we know that there are men and women, XX chromosomes, XY chromosomes,
Right. Right.
and the world out there wants to tell you that those chromosomes are meaningless. Well, I've got the
Right.
truth already. If I go and exchange it for their lie, I have lost. My
Okay.
balance sheets have dropped across the board. And I
Right.
think that's really what this is talking about.
Gotcha.
Now, I think your point is right that there's a time and place to sell information. And I think that, I'm trying to figure out where that line is myself, because I've got the premium membership at Common Sense Bible Study where, I've got the chiasm course and a Sabbath to Yahweh, and I'm charging people for access to those, but
Hmm.
I don't feel comfortable in charging for everything. My
Right.
original plan was, because I want people to value what I'm giving them, I'm going to
Hmm.
charge for access to the whole community. But there's just wasn't enough interest, for one thing, and it always just rubbed me the wrong way. I was never comfortable with it. And so now I'm kind of straddling that fence where, I've got the vast majority of the content is available for free to anybody who wants to come in, as long as they behave themselves. And
Hmm.
then I've got this core of stuff that I've worked harder on personally, but it's not verse by verse exposition of the scriptures. And what I'm actually selling is the labor that went into producing that content and putting it into the format to help people learn it.
Well,
And I,
your approach, as I see it, is you have your life. You are working. You are on the side. This is your passion. And I've seen over and over again you delve into your passion and try to explain revelations that are coming forth.
mhm,
Whereas there's a whole business component of people that they have something to say. Okay, they say it, and they feel that that's their avocation, so they now need to have something new to say. And maybe Yahweh's telling them say this over and over, but at some point, I would think you are simply producing because that's what you've become known for. So you're not necessarily producing wisdom. You're just producing for the sake of production.
mhm.
I mean, how do you have some sort of massive revelation that you need to spit out there for people to ponder? I would think that, yeah, you're going to get it lightning in a bottle a few times, but you're going to get it every time. And you're seeing these authors out there that are on book number 10 or 12 or whatever. And, I'm just looking at them saying, okay, you're a writer. So you're just writing.
Hmm.
Oh, I'm cynical.
There is plenty in this world to be cynical about.
Yeah. I mean, Miles Monroe, I like his, when he first came out with the Kingdom stuff, I thought that was very interesting. But whatever on the same topic was like, oh, you're kind of beating a dead horse here.
Hmm.
I'd say this Jonathan Kahn, Brevier, or I've seen a few people that have like yeah, you don't have something to say to every topic. I'm sorry, but I just don't give anybody that wisdom.
Yeah, I just had to look up Miles Monroe. Wasn't sure who that was.
Oh, he's passed, but he had a number of books on the kingdom, and
Hmm.
they
Yeah,
were
he's got a bunch of
unique.
them.
Yeah, they were unique to me to start, but then you start seeing a number of other iterations of that, or using that same approach. And Jonathan Kahn would be a great example of that as well. I'm not
Hmm.
trying to it's a Jonathan Kahn bashing. I'm just using these as examples. So there's the people that come to mind.
Seems like he had a book called Unfit for Purpose. It seems I heard that one mentioned somewhere recently.
Who
I
had a
don't
book?
remember what the context is. Miles Monroe,
Oh, okay.
a, a intriguing title.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, back to Proverbs.
Yeah.
I don't know if we really have time to go through all of this. I mean, it's 8:20 now. But most of the rest of this is really about, giving in to physical urges, gluttony and drunkenness. This last bit here, they struck me, but I was not hurt. They beat me, but I did not feel it. When shall I awake? I must have another drink. That almost sounds like it's a good thing. Hey, I can get beat up and not feel it. But then if you take this in the context of the father disciplining his son, if you strike him, it's because you love him and you're trying to teach him something. But if someone keeps failing to learn the lessons of life because they're inebriated, then life is going to keep beating them, trying to teach them, and they're never going to learn.
Saw on Facebook today, it was sad as could be. It was a oh, you there?
Yep.
Alicia? Okay. Yeah, I saw on Facebook today, it was a sad depiction. It was a police officer, a chief, and he was being interrogated, and he was in hospital garb. And you're listening to this, you're going, where is this going? And then you realize that he was being interrogated because he was in a room with a fellow police officer. They were sharing a room on the way back from some event, and he ended up beating that officer to death. And you're listening to them talk, and you realize if this was legitimate, he certainly came across that way. What did I do? I'm here because I presume something bad happened. Where is Lucky? Lucky's the other fellow that died. And you surmise that he blacked out from drinking.
Mm-hmm.
And there are questions of, are you an angry drunk? That type of thing. So obviously there are, through drink, through those gateways that open up, there are evils that can happen, whether it's you or demonic or a lack of control on your part or rage or whatever that spirit is that emotes.
Mm-hmm.
There's some people that can't handle it. There's some people that are, I have personally seen it myself with an individual that it was one of the saddest things I ever saw. This individual overdrank and he became a very different person, and he wanted to go beat up some colleagues of mine at work. And I'm just like, oh my God, I had to walk him back to his hotel room because he was so over the top. And you just realize that's the alcohol talking. That's the way of saying it, but it's not. That's whatever it is within you that you've opened the gate to, and you've no longer, you've lost self-control. There is whether it's drug or alcohol, there is an admonition of losing control that can be dangerous. That's what this is about. You can't feel anything. It beat me. Like, I can't feel it. I want another drink. I know it's a little gory and that I'm bringing this up, but I think it's on point with what the scripture is saying. Saying, be careful, because this can be a very dangerous thing that you're opening up. And
Yeah.
what that thing is, I don't know if it's you or demonic, probably both.
Mm-hmm. If you are lowering your inhibitions, then you are more susceptible to temptations. And where do temptations come from? So you got some evil spirit whispering in your ear saying, hey, that guy said something bad, or blowing insults way out of proportion, or whatever it is. That kind of stuff happens. It's much more likely to happen when your judgment is impaired.
What I saw with his coworker, before he ramped up to the point of wanting to go fight other coworkers, I saw him struggling with father issues.
Mm-hmm.
He was all of a sudden lamenting upon and that's interesting because we're talking about that in this context as well. He suddenly was just absorbed with his poor relationship with his father. And I don't think he was looking to fight another person. I think he was looking to fight his father. It just happened to be in the guise of this other person. Yeah, it was. And ironically, 10 years later, I'll say 10 years later, it was this last January, I'm at work with another coworker, and this individual was known to this coworker I'm talking with, and these same issues had manifested with other people. So they don't go away if you don't deal with them,
Mm-hmm.
And even if you've dealt with them, you start drinking and you can revisit those things.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's and if you go back to verse 20, be not among drunkards. This is sort of fleshing out what being amongst drunkards can look like. You're amongst people that are dealing with issues, maybe not in the best of
Mm-hmm.
fashions.
Yeah, and if you're drunk and you are having trouble, with good judgment, well, if the guy next to you is drunk and he's also having trouble with good judgment,
Mm-hmm.
you're
Mm-hmm.
you're not helping each other. you're
There's a
just going to
synergy.
be compounding the problem.
Yeah. Yes, the synergy. It really is. It builds it up more.
Yeah. All right. Well, I kind of skipped down to the end of the chapter there, but
your eyes will see strange things. Yeah, your eyes will see strange things. Your heart will utter perverse things. That's what it's talking about. That's what you're going to see among those. Yeah, you will see strange things.
Yeah. Well, it warps your perspective of everything. It warps the way you see and hear things, and it warps the way you think about them inside. So, I mean, there's the classic cartoon thing of pink elephants. I've never known anybody who actually hallucinated with just alcohol, but you might as well be hallucinating when it distorts your perception so much.
Right.
And of course, there are other substances that definitely can cause hallucinations. And I suppose that depending on how your alcohol was brewed, the cleanliness of the materials and things that might be added to it, that could certainly cause you problems too.
There are certain people that cannot drink certain alcohol.
Mm-hmm.
Some can't drink gin or tequila or whatever because their body has a certain type of response to that particular brew, which is interesting. For me, alcohol makes me obsess, and that's not a good thing for me. I get enough that I can obsess about that. When you're obsessing, you're just focusing. It's a gong. It's over and over and over again, and that just highlights the problem. Whereas you want to have solution. You don't want to be just stuck. I think I've said this before. One of my biggest fears is I had a cousin that had a stroke, and all that she could say was no, 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 no. Her husband understood her. I don't know how. He understood what she was saying, and she responded. But I would hate to have myself get locked into a negative mindset, and alcohol or substance certainly could be a means to that end, at least for a period of time. I see it.
Yeah, there is a place for alcohol in the world, but it is an easy thing to misuse. All right. Well, it's been a good conversation.